Hello, everyone. Welcome to DES 103. This is our week three beginning vector illustration class, and we are about to have our live lecture. I just wanted to welcome everyone who is watching me from home and who has attended today. So we're going to go over a few things from last week and talk about any of the trouble spots, and I'll even go over some demos on how we do the pen tool. And then we're going to go over just a few objectives this week, what your assignments are going to expect out of you. In fact, this class is going to heavily involve the demos for how to do assignment 3 and how to do assessment 3, because for our assessment 3 we don't have a quiz. So this time we're going to be doing some text and some type editing and learning how to use the type tool. But before we kick off today's class, I wanted to go ahead and start the video and just say hello, everybody. And yes, that is a trampoline in my living room, or kitchen, I should say. It's been kind of interesting having kids and 2 weeks of rain. We finally started getting desperate, so it stays. I want to welcome Matthew. Thanks for coming today. Matthew, how's the sound on your end? Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for joining. I'm going to go ahead and mute your mic in case other students come in, but feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions at all. All right. So like I said, we're going to jump into this class. We're going to go over week 2. We're going to talk about the trouble spots. Where did we get stuck? The pen tool exercises should have caught some people. Well, I should say some students took to it well and was able to pick it up quickly, but a large amount of you kind of struggled through some of the harder exercises. So I'm going to go over those one more time for you. And again, don't get discouraged, because the pen tool is it takes a long time to master. I've been doing this for, oh gosh, 15 years now, and I wouldn't consider myself a master at it. So I'm still learning, still trying to fine tune, and it takes a lot of finesse. So don't get discouraged. Lots of practice is needed. All right, let's talk about the assignment. Now, Matthew, you're in class. What do you have any questions about last week at all related to the assignments? Anything you want to see done again? If not, I'll go ahead and go over the pen tool exercises.
I just didn't understand. I was trying to use the pen tool, and I don't know if my Illustrator isn't set up right, but it wouldn't allow me to use the pen tool correctly.
The
So
way that you wanted to. Okay, yeah,
yeah.
no, that's fine. I'll go over a demo, and then if you're still getting stuck, we can go over it, you and I, at the end of class.
Okay. And
But
it
then,
was
yeah,
the
go.
issue was when I was trying to use it, the that handlebar would come up and it wouldn't allow me to outline.
Yes, that is in fact, I'll be honest with you guys, it took me a while to finally figure out why my
No, lost sound.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, thank you for telling me. I'm not sure why it was on mute. Let me try that again. Okay, thanks so much. And again, let me know if that happens. All right, so I'll start over. The thing with the pen tool is that if you click just once, a single click on your artboard will give you straight lines in any direction. Okay, I can go left, I can go right, I can go up, down, backwards, and you'll see how these lines are very straight with a single curve, or I'm sorry, with a single click. But the pen tool also does some really neat things called Bezier curves. And what we need to do to initiate the Bezier curves, or to get the pen tool initiated, we're going to click and drag to create handlebars. So these handlebars, depending on which direction I drag them or rotate them, just holding down the mouse, clicking and dragging, give me these Bezier curves. Now, your pen tool automatically wants to go in a certain direction, left or right, and it's already ready to initiate the next curve. But if I don't want it to curve and I want it to maybe just go straight without a curve, I have to tell it what to do. So I'm going to hold down the Alt Option button, and that will allow me to manipulate my handlebar. I can now change the direction that my pen tool will go. So this way, I can create a straight line because I was able to manipulate my handlebar. Now, say I want to go left and I want to create a nice curve. If I click and drag those handlebars, it will create that curve. But now I want it to go straight again, so I have to hold down Alt Option, and now it will allow me to create straight lines, or I can continue the curve any way I want. So get in the habit of practicing. That's what these exercises are doing, is trying to teach you that if you move the handlebars, depending which direction you move them, you can alter the kind of Bezier curve you create and the direction that your pen tool will go next. So let's start here. Feel free to follow along if you have yours open. I'm going to click once. Whoops. Let's see. See if my layers are open. Let me grab my layers. So we'll do a little practice. I'll lock the template here. That way it'll let me draw. So you'll have to follow the directions very carefully because it will tell you how to manipulate your handlebars, which direction to take them. And so this is just practice. So click here, hold down the Shift key. So click and hold as you drag. What that's allowing you to do is manipulate the handlebar, telling it which direction it's going to go. One single click and hold down the Shift key. Holding down the Shift key also helps you create a perfect curve, kind of like we hold down Shift when we constrain the proportions of any shape. So by holding down the Shift key, clicking and dragging, what we're doing is we're positioning the handlebar in the proper place to give us that perfect Bezier curve. Now, to deselect from this, you just grab your selection tool and you are on your way. All right, let's do one a little bit more complicated, one that uses handlebars a little bit more. And now, Matthew, if you have a specific question and I haven't addressed it yet, feel free to let me know, and I'll go over that with you. So curves with corner points. Again, we're going to manipulate the direction that our handlebar moves, and that will tell it where we want the curve to display. So by clicking and holding, dragging the handlebar up, clicking and holding, dragging the handlebar down. And then it says after you've done that, hold down your Alt Option button. By doing that, you'll notice that your mouse turns into the shape of a V, upside down V. This tool allows you to manipulate. You have to hold down Alt and Option, but this allows you to manipulate the direction of the handlebar. So now we're going to move the handlebar up here, and I can go click and drag, hold down Shift to give me that perfect curve. Again, I'm going to hold down Alt Option, and I'm manipulating this handlebar. I'm moving it to the top. This will give me the kind of curve that I'm looking for. Hold down Option as I click and drag. Hold down Alt Option and move it up. Again, we're using these handlebars to show us how or which direction we want this Bezier curve to go. All right, and you can just grab your selection tool to deselect off of that. So this is just showing you to practice with the handlebars. So I know I'll get into more of the pen tool in just a minute, but hopefully that helps. Again, in order to get the curve and a straight line, an upside down curve and a straight line, we have to be able to manipulate the handlebars. So I'll do one more. If you click and hold down Shift to keep that straight line, click and hold. And then now if I were to go over here to number 6, look, it's going to give me another curve, and I don't want it to do that. So I need to communicate to the pen tool what I want it to do. So holding down Alt Option and bringing my handlebar this way, now my pen tool will automatically go straight, okay? So we just need to be able to show where we want it to go. So let's try it again. We'll click and drag. I have to hold down Shift, and then we will, let's see, we're on 4. Now we're going to click, go straight, bring down that handlebar, bring it up, hold down Shift to keep that straight line and that perfect curve. And then it's saying click again to go straight. Oops. Hold on, sorry. Click to and drag to release here. Then number 10 says click again. That gives us a straight line. Click and release the anchor point, hold down the Shift key, and then at 12, we're going to click and drag our handlebar to show us that we want to finish that curve. So again, a lot of it's just manipulating the direction of our handlebars, because when we move the handlebar, it changes the course of the pen tool, especially when we're tracing. So I'll show you an example when we're tracing, because this is a little hard to see, but when you're actually trying to trace something, you do need to manipulate the direction of that handlebar. So we'll get into that a little bit more. Hopefully this helps with the exercises though. All right, and we have a few more people. Thanks for coming, Apple. Now, are there any other questions before I move on? We've demoed the week 2 problem spots. I saw some of us kind of struggled with the Bezier curves and manipulating the handlebars, so I wanted to make sure we got through that. All right, so we're going to go back, and I have a little video that I want to show you. So I'll share the screen. We'll just this is on our week 3. It's on our course homepage, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of kick in week 3 with a video. So let me know if you have trouble hearing it.
As soon as you open up your eyes, folks, this is how you create an unstoppable, optimistic attitude to succeed every day. This is very simple. It's not brain surgery, it's brain adjustment, okay? As soon as you open up your eyes, understand that you enter into consciousness. It is at that moment that your creativity is at its most powerful. At that moment, you have an opportunity to steer your thoughts and your emotions in the direction that you want them to go. In other words, you can choose to seize the day, or you could let the day seize you. I think we can all agree that today, too many people wake up in the morning. As soon as they open up their eyes, the first thing they focus on is the grueling day that they had the day before. All the things that didn't turn out the way they wanted it to go. Then they start thinking about the grueling day that lies ahead of them, the traffic jam that they have to be into. And then they can't understand why, when they're going into work, their energy level is down here. And with what you're trying to accomplish, with the responsibility that you have, it has to be up here. It has to be up here. So what I'm asking you to do, as soon as you open up your eyes, before you take the covers off, before you plant your feet on the floor, is to think of something or someone that you are totally grateful for in your life. I don't care who it is, and I don't care what it is. Maybe it's the person lying next to you. Maybe you're thinking of your children, the dog that's lying on the side of the bed, the cat that's laying on the other side of the bed. Maybe you're listening to the birds outside the window in your house. Maybe you're thinking of your home. Maybe it's a particular goal that you achieved or someone that you helped a couple of days before. Folks, it doesn't matter what it is or who it is. Just feel it with your heart and soul and keep building from there. Why am I asking you to do this? Because gratitude is the most powerful connection you have to your higher self. You always want to start your day connected to your higher self. The reasons are obvious. If you're connected to this higher part of yourself, your life just flows throughout the entire day. When you're confronted with a challenge, that's all it is. You don't take it personally. It's just a challenge. It's a part of life. And you know there's something within you that can deal with it and meet it and overcome it and be blessed by it. When you're not connected to this higher part of yourself, life becomes very difficult.
All right. So hopefully that was motivating, waking up with a positive attitude. Sometimes we can get
We've got a lot going on in our lives, and I liked that video because it kind of reminded us how we can greet the day with a positive. Now that's easier said than done, I realize, but it's actually it's a good thing to get in the habit of practicing, so that when we do meet something stressful like the pen tool, we can meet it head on and with a smile. So let's move on. I'm going to go ahead and share our slides. We'll jump right in. I don't have a lot of slides to go over today. It's mostly going to be spent in Illustrator. So today we're just going to do hands-on activities. I really want you to follow along if you can. I feel like we learn better that way. All right. The pen tool is stressful, yes, especially when we're trying to learn it. And it's hard for a teacher to teach it. I mean, it's not very easy on my end because I wish I could just do it for you. But you'll learn the same way I did, and that's just practice, 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 and kind of getting familiar with the tendencies of the pen tool. But as we practice this week 3 template, or tracing this template, you'll get a lot of practice in on this one. You should be a pro by the end of it. All right, so we're going to talk about utilizing a template layer. We talked a lot about how to set one up last week, but we're also going to create and finish our Illustrator drawing. So have you guys looked at week 3 at all? Do you know what the assignment 3 is? Hopefully you're not dreading it. It's actually a really fun assignment. I'm excited to do this one. Okay, yeah, so we're going to be kind of doing self-portraits in a way. We're going to have a template, and we're going to have features like a nose, eyes, ears, mouth, and we're going to kind of draw it according to what kind of resembles ourselves in a way. And then we're going to practice the pen tool, the tracing, the filling, kind of giving it character. And then we're going to learn how to create a cool background and place our illustrative portrait on that background. And that's going to be our assignment. So it's a little labor intensive. You can use multiple tools, pen tool, pencil tool, and each tool will give you a different result. So it just depends on what you're trying to achieve. But we're going to go into naming and utilizing more layers to organize our objects. We're going to identify proper how to use images or artwork in a template layer. We're talking a lot about this in our discussion, kind of how we're kind of addressing using template layers and how we can create things in Illustrator. So there's different designers, designer A and designer B, and I want you to kind of get in this discussion and read each scenario, talk about how they use that template layer. And what we're going to get into is, we're talking a lot about, like, is it plagiarism, or are they just using this photo for inspiration? Would it be considered plagiarism in these different scenarios, and why? When is it acceptable to use a template? Is it acceptable at all? So we're going to kind of get into this a little bit, and the reason why we're talking about it is because there's a lot of gray areas. We have the great internet at our disposal, and there is anything we want on there, including ideas and creative designers who have come before us that have, you might see something that said, oh, that's so cool, I'm going to copy that. But are we doing it to learn, to practice, or are we doing it to get credit for it and to make money off of it? Or so there's gray areas, there's fine lines. You just have to decide, and you tell me based on these scenarios A and B which one is considered plagiarism, which one's not, and then in what way is it acceptable. So I kind of want to get this discussion going because it's a real life discussion. This is stuff you probably have run into in this class, kind of Googling things for inspiration. Oh, that was so cool. I might try that. And that's okay to practice. It's okay to practice, but how are we submitting someone else's work so that we're getting credit for it? Are we taking someone else's hard work and creativity, I guess you could say, and using it to get a good grade? So we kind of just need to be able to identify those fine lines. So I want you to be involved. Again, discussions can't be made up. There are no late submissions on discussions allowed. I would love to give credit for it. Sadly, it's the school policy, so I'm not able to accept late discussions. So it's kind of our way of taking attendance in class. So please be present and please be active in the discussion so that we can see that you're posting on multiple days and that you're engaging in this discussion and this forum with your other peers. And plus, it gets you some easy points, and it can hurt your grade if you're not truly active in it. So please make sure you participate. Tomorrow is the deadline to get your initial post in. Remember, it has to be a minimum of 150 words and then a minimum of 50-word responses to your peers, and you need 2 of those. So feel free, get creative here. I'd love to see visual examples. This is a visual class, so instead of just typing out a long essay, please share some visual examples. I love seeing the things that illustrate your point. It's a great way to kind of get your point across. All right, if you haven't looked at week 3, here it is. So for this assignment, we will be creating a custom cartoon self-portrait based on whether or not you're a girl or a boy, or if you feel inspired to do one or the other, fine with me. I just want to see your pen tool skills in action. So you're going to, basically the premise is to draw based off of the templates shown below, and also based off of your features. So if you have, a big teethy grin, maybe that's the one you go with for the lips. If you have really, wide eyes, maybe that's the one you go with for the eyes. Or maybe your eyes are green or brown. What shape are your eyebrows? That's going to be the premise for what we're going to create. So we're going to create all these little parts, and we're going to put them together. And hopefully when you're done, it kind of resembles you, so in some way. And then someone's asking a question, can I add an image onto my discussion that I have already posted? You might be able to, Apple. That's a good question. If there's a way for you to edit your comment, you should be able to. If it allows you to edit, you can add an image to it. If it doesn't, then you can just post it right underneath it. And that's fine. And yes, I would be flattered if someone copied me too. However, it's not so flattering when lawsuits are involved. So that's why we're trying to get everyone on the same page here, and trying to avoid the plagiarism. It's a fine line, and sometimes it's totally unintentional. Sometimes we don't realize what we're doing is considered copying. Now in this assignment, we are in a way copying this template, but we're doing so in a way that we are tailoring it to ourselves so that no 2 avatars should look alike. When I get submissions, one should resemble yourself. And since we're not all alike, they should all be different. So in that way, yes, we're copying and tracing to practice, but we're also kind of making enough changes off of the original that, in the end, it becomes something that's yours. All right, so if you will log into Illustrator with me, we're going to kind of delve into this a little bit. We're going to go into the assignment pretty heavily, and then I've got a few little basic exercises I'd like to add at the end. We'll go over the assessment if there's time, and I want to go over how to create a custom background as well. That was very simple, but I think we need to go into this week 3 assignment because it's going to require a lot of pen tool illustration and use, and we need the practice. So let's work together. If you don't have Illustrator already up, please load it. I am a huge advocate on sharing screens, so I'll demo something. I might give you a chance to do it, and then if you have a question, share your screen, because I guarantee you're not the only one with that question when others are watching this recording. So it kind of helps us all out, and also it helps you learn a little bit more when you're able to copy what I'm doing and practice. So I encourage you to do that. It's not necessary. So if you're screen shy, no problem. Not going to call on you. But if you'd like to volunteer, I would welcome the participation. So the instructions ask us to create a new document. So we all should know how to do that. 8.5 by 11, just a standard letter size paper. And you're going to create it with 2 artboards. Okay, and then you're going to place your chosen template, boy or girl. You'll download that from the website. So I'll give you a minute to do that. So while I'm talking about this assignment, why don't you go ahead and go to assignment 3 on the course homepage and download which template layer you're going to use, boy or girl. Doesn't matter to me. And then we're going to practice tracing the different facial elements. So based on your own features, which eyebrows are you going to trace, or which eye shape are you going to use, which lip shape, which nose. So even the hairstyle. And you could create your own if you don't see any on here. But the point here is to practice tracing, because that will help us hone in on our pen tool skills a little bit. All right, so give me a little smiley face or an okay or I'm ready to go if you have that template already pulled into Illustrator. I'll keep talking unless you guys aren't going to be working alongside, and then I'll just move forward. So on the second artboard, we're going to combine the elements to create the cartoon face, and then we're going to resize the face to fit really nicely on that artboard, and we're going to customize a background. We're going to be customizing the drawing to kind of better match our features. We're going to draw some shoulders and maybe a collar or top of a shirt. And then we're going to incorporate some colors and patterns in this, and then add a background color or maybe a gradient to finish it off. So this will be really fun. I want you to get into this. This could be a great portfolio piece when you're done, to be able to say you were able to illustrate an avatar or a self-portrait in some way. And then submission requirements, you're going to be submitting your Illustrator file. And that's the file that we're going to be using for grading. All right. This should be I won't say simple, but a simple way to get a good grade. I'm going to be critiquing on how well you followed the directions. And you're not going to get a grade for, well, is the nose too big or the eyes too close together. If these are your features, these are your features. But I do want you to try to do your best in using the pen tool to create these elements. And it should be a good grade for you guys if you can just complete the assignment. Here are some week 3 examples. In this case, the student highlighted which eyes she used, which eyebrows she used, which nose, which hair, and which head and skin type that she used. So, and then you can see how she drew her shoulders and added some shirt and some jewelry. That was kind of cool. And then added a kind of a floral background in the back. And this gentleman here picked different eyes, different, I guess, mustache, goatee, lots of other features available on the man's face construction, and added a really cool background as well. So this was really neat. Even added an earring. That's kind of cool. So, and if you'll notice, the earring incorporated that gradient that we're practicing. And Eden added some shadowing here. So that's pretty neat as well. So use this for inspiration and for guidance as you're doing this week 3 assignment. We'll go ahead and get in. I'll just talk briefly about, okay, it looks like Apple's ready. That's awesome. And we'll go ahead and jump into Illustrator in just a minute. So week 3's assessment. So for this assessment, you're going to learn how to work with the Illustrator text tool. You're going to change text to outlines. We're going to talk about what that means in a little bit. And we're also going to be learning how to edit it a little bit, position the type nicely, how to give it some character. And we're going to be using it so it represents your personality. So you'll pick a font that kind of represents you. The idea here is you're going to copy and paste it on 3 different artboards. You're going to type out your name and paste it on 3 different artboards. Then on 2 of the artboards, you're going to change the text to outlines and leave it as it is. But on artboard 3, you're going to be changing the text to outlines and customizing 3 or more of the characters so that your name becomes a unique and special logo. So I'll show you some tools and tips and tricks that you can use to kind of give it some character. And then you're going to submit the Illustrator file so that I can see that you know how to use outlines. Here's some examples. The first 2 examples. The first one, they used the type tool. Second one, she created outlines. It doesn't look any different, but the settings are different. When you create something to outline or create an outlined object, you have now kind of vectorized it, so to speak. So now it becomes editable. Each character or each letter becomes editable now. You can no longer edit it with the type tool. You'll now edit it with the vector illustration tools. Then in the third example, she gave it some character. She kind of added a little something to make it feel, give it more personality, and she customized it. a little bit more. So I like this. I thought this was a very simple way of kind of creating something that mirrored her personality. There's another student. In this case, they picked a distressed font. First two examples will look similar, but the settings are different. And then the third one, what this person did was kind of change the size and the angle of letters. Also, the the direction, the C is up a little bit more. The M is a little larger. Some of the capital letters are just kind of slightly, they don't line up as well, and kind of gave it more of not only a distress, but more chaotic look. So that was kind of neat how they captured that. So we'll go into the demo I did the week 2 assignment review already. So let's talk about week 3. Let's get enough talking. Let's just play in Illustrator. So we're going to go into our Illustrator really quick. And we're going to talk about layers first. Do you feel comfortable on how to use layers? Layer files can be very fickle. And I want to make sure that we understand how to use them. Okay, good. All right. So what we're going to do with the layers is you're going to create a new document. So you'll go into File, New. So I'll set it up with you. Just follow my steps. If you get stuck, let me know because I want you to be able to follow along. File, New. It wants to start thinking. There we go. It'll bring up your new document dialog box here. You can either click on letter or you can go to inches, 8.5 by 11. Orientation is going to be portrait. We need 2 artboards. Don't forget that. Everything stays the same and you'll hit create. I did forget to give it a name, so you will need to name it. If you haven't named it yet, you can name it now by either going to File, Save, or hitting Command or Control S on your Mac or PC. You don't see my Illustrator, thank you. Let me pull it up. See. Thank you. I tell you, they hard having more than one program up and running because it's hard to keep track of what I'm sharing and what I'm not. Okay, we'll set up our new document, so I'll just step you through it. File, New. This is just a refresher from what we've learned week 1 and week 2. Don't worry, you didn't miss much because my Illustrator is so slow to move. You can either select letter or you can go to inches and it'll automatically default to the 8.5 by 11. You'll hit create. Oh, don't forget to give it a name and change the artboard amount to 2. So the name will be DES 103. This is assignment 3 _ your name, okay? Probably should be first, last name. All right, so we'll create that. And then what you're going to do is bring in the template. So whichever template you choose, you're going to go to File, or I'm sorry, in this case I've already placed it, so I'm going to grab it. Let's see. So I'm going to paste it. I'm going to put it on, and you want it to be fairly large, probably as large as your picture, or your artboard, I'm sorry. Hold down Shift as you click and drag it. And you'll see that there's a lot of different styles. So just depending on the one you're going to go with. All right. And then once you've placed it on your Artboard 1, you'll need to open up your Layers panel. It can be found under your Windows drop-down menu. Everything is alphabetical in here. So you'll just go to Layers. You'll create, I like to create 3 layers. So layer 1, we're going to rename as Template so that we know that this is the template layer. I'm going to double click on it. And it opens up my layer options. I'm going to check mark the template layer, and then I'm going to dim the images to about 50%, okay? And the reason why I do this is so that it, by changing the opacity, it'll allow me to see my work on top of it, and that's what we want. And the neat thing with layers is that when you have your layers options open, you can change the color coding based on the layer that you want. And I always recommend to pick 3 different, very stark, different big contrast in the colors that you can recognize. So if you say, so just by red, you know, oh, I'm on layer 1, or by green, I'm on layer 2. Blue is layer, you know, whatever. So you can pick your or you can even customize colors. So just make sure that there are 3 very different colors. You don't want 3 different shades of blue, because then it'll get confusing. So hit OK, and then you'll want to make sure your layer is locked by clicking this box right here. This also toggles your visibility, so you can make sure you see it, but this indicates that it is a template. It's in view mode, and that this is your template layer. All right. So as you can see, it already, well, because it's locked, I can't move it, and that's exactly what we want. We want to lock the template so that we can move things around and things don't get stuck. All right. And now I also wanted to talk, while I've got this layers thing open, if you'll follow along with me. Second, let me just close out of some of my windows. All right, so the primary organization tool, once you're inside the Illustrator file, is that there are a number of reasons why you might use them. So in the document that we're going to look at, and I just want to kind of shift gears to this one real quick. I want to show you this layer before we get into our assignment, because I want to talk about layers a little bit more. Let me hide this. Okay. So can everyone see this African picture with the animals and the trees? So in this document that we're looking here, for example, I would have found this a bit unwieldy to work with everything in one layer. This would be very hard, because especially when you're getting into the grass, lots of small features, lots of details, and you want to be able to distinguish, put them on different layers to keep them organized. Now, if I needed to target things quickly, this would probably be very hectic on just one layer. So if I move across with my mouse, you'll notice how different things highlight, right? You can see that different things here are highlighted, and there are different colors. Well, I should say the outline of them are different colors. So there are edges lighting up in different colors, and you can see here my layers, blue, green, red, and that's because they're separated out onto different layers. All right, so let's examine that structure a little bit more in detail, and perhaps it will make sense to you to completely, I don't know, if you're an organization freak like I am, this makes total sense. If you're not used to organizing things in Illustrator or Photoshop or InDesign, then this can be a little confusing. I just wanted to welcome Debbie. Thanks for coming in. We're just talking about how to use layers in Illustrator. So if you'll pull it up for me now, open up a file of your own. You can do a new document. Practice creating multiple layers. I would start with 3. There are edges lighting up on the different colors, and that's because they're separated out onto different layers. As you can see, they're color-coded here. So let's examine this structure a little bit more. Now, we can go to the Layers panel, which is nested right here with the Properties panel, and I'm going to turn off all the layers to begin with. So if I turn all these off, then I'm going to turn on the background layer, or maybe the grassland layer. Let's try this. I'm going to throw this. It should actually be the template layer. So we'll do template, then I'll create a background. All right, so we're going to practice changing layers or sending something to layers. All right, so we're going to make this all visible. So if we're going to move an object to a different layer, what we're going to do, so say I wanted to move these clouds. Right now they're highlighted in blue on the object layer, as you can see, and say I wanted to put them on the background layer. Okay, what I would do is select the object. So you can practice with me. You can draw something or circle or whatever it is, and just practice sending it to a different layer. So you can do one of the following. You can click the name of the desired layer in the Layers panel. So right now, object is selected. You can go to Object at the type here and click Arrange. Object, Arrange. Let's go. Send to current layer. So what you want to do is highlight the layer that you want to send it to. So we want to send it to the background layer. Then we're going to click on Object, Arrange, Send to current layer. By clicking that, now you can see my background layer has clouds on it. And my blue, or let me change this color real quick so we can see the big difference. Let's change it to pink. Go. We'll hit OK. So now it turns to pink. So now you can see that the pink bounding box and the outline is pink, showing me and indicating what layer these clouds are now on. So it moved to the background layer. If I wanted to send this grass, which is highlighted on the objects layer, and I wanted to send it to the grassland layer, right now there's nothing on it, but if I wanted to send it to, I would click on the grassland layer, go to Object, Arrange, Send to Current Layer. And now you can see it's highlighted in green, and it's indicating that it is on the grassland layer. So you'll see, basically you'll see that on top of this, this entire page here, I can send these objects to different layers. So depending on the layer that I'm working with, I can hide certain things. Let me hide this template here. I can hide the objects layer, and you'll see that the items on it disappear, like the text, or the grassland layer, the grass disappears. Or now if I hide the background layer, the clouds now disappear. So depending on what layer I'm on, this is a great way to organize. Now I can lock all of the content that I'm not working with on a layer so that I won't accidentally work with it as well. So I can lock the layers so it no longer allows me to select. Whoops. There, now I can't grab it at all. So I can lock these layers that I don't want to mess with while I'm drawing or tracing. So locking layers is a good habit to get into. And as we go through this lecture, you'll find out especially why layers are so important. Now I have a video that kind of illustrates this, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Can't find your layers panel, okay. And you don't see my Illustrator? Found it? Oh, okay. Perfect. Do you still see my Illustrator? Okay, awesome. I just want to make sure we see. All right, so we're going to stop the share here, and I'm going to show you a little video found on Lynda. And this is a great explanation on how to do layers, kind of just summarizing what I was just going over. Okay, and let me know if you can't hear it.
Organization tool once you're inside an Illustrator file, and there are a number of reasons why you might use them. In the document we're looking at here, for example, I would have found this a bit unwieldy to work with everything on one layer if I needed to target things quickly. If I move across it with my mouse, you can see different things here, their edges lighting up in different colors, and that's because they are separated out onto different layers. So let's examine that structure in more detail, and perhaps it will make sense to you completely when you see that. We go to the Layers panel, which is nested here with the Properties panel, and I'm going to turn all of the layers off to begin with. Then I'm going to turn on the background here. So this is the stuff off in the distance, of course, in my illustration. You can see there just some simple cloud symbols, some birds, some sky, an island, and some background ocean just there. You'll see why in just a second. And then on top of that, there's the ship. That's drawn there like so. So that's meant to be, of course, floating on the ocean, which explains the fore-ocean layer that I've got there. Some of that has some transparency effects going on there, so it looks like the things are actually in the water, and then the things in the foreground. So all the foreground elements just there. And it's much easier for me to work in this way. If I need to just hide everything else while I'm working on something, I can do that. I can lock all of the content here that I'm not working on, so I won't accidentally work with it as well. That's another thing I can do there, and so much more. As we go through this chapter, you'll find out, especially in...
All right, so that's just a little brief introduction, kind of a review of what we went over. All right, so let's get into our assignment 3. So as we're setting up our layers, we're practicing a little bit. I'll let you screenshot this if you want to save it for your notes on how to move an object to a different layer, or you can just rewatch the the recording. All right, hopefully everyone can see my Illustrator. So that's kind of a little introduction to how to play with layers. So if we go to our assignment 3, you'll notice that no matter how many artboards you have, your layers are going to be applied to all of them. So that can kind of get a little confusing. So what we're going to do is start from scratch. So we started these 3 layers. The first layer is template, which we changed the color and we locked it. We set it to a template layer. How do you do a screenshot? Oh, if you have the grab tool, you can use that. I'm not sure. I've actually only used the grab tool. So if you have a Mac, you can use that. If not, you probably might want to Google it. You're on a PC? Yeah, I can maybe Google it and see how you do it on a PC. I'm not sure. I know how to do it on a Mac. Sorry. If you want the instructions, I can send them to you and you can just have them. If that helps, let's go to, that will probably be easier. So this is how you move an object to a different layer. There you go. And you can just save that for your records. All right, layer 2. Layer 2 is going to be, you can name it tracing or can name it whatever you want, facial features. What we want to do is keep our layer names short and sweet. So one could be hair. You know, you could do one for all your features. One could be eyes. It's up to you, but we want to make sure that we're playing with layers enough. All right, now I'm going to hop off my template layer. I'm no longer going to need that, and I'm going to go into my hair layer. Now over here, I already did a tracing of a little rendition of myself. So as you can see, I traced this. So we'll hop back and forth depending on time, but we're going to zoom in quite a bit. You'll notice it gets pretty pixelated, so you're not going to be able to get totally accurate, but what I did was I started off by tracing her hair bun, and then I added some more hair below. But there are all these different hairstyles that you can do. So I'll start with this one. This one seems to be more indicative of me. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of grabbing my pen tool, clicking and dragging, and redirecting those handlebars right where I need them to go. We can adjust things later. It doesn't have to be perfect, but here, Matthew, this is kind of probably where you were getting stuck too. Is I want to come back down to trace the shape of her head, but it's coming out wider than the actual line that I want to trace. So what I need to do is hold down Alt-Option and move this handlebar in. This now allows me to redirect the angle of my curve. All right, and what we need to do is turn off our fill. You can keep the stroke on there so you can see what it's doing. And again, I need to hold down Alt-Option and kind of straighten this out a little bit. Clicking and dragging gives it a little bit more curvature. I'm just going to kind of go in here. It doesn't have to be totally perfect. I kind of go over here and give it slight curve. I'm going to bring in my handlebar a little bit so I can get that right curve on it. All right, now I've got it drawn. Come back to the original anchor point. So now what we're going to do is fine tune this. I have a lot of hard edges on this tracing that I want to get rid of. There's a lot of ways you can manipulate these anchor points. One is by using the direction selection tool, where you can come in here and kind of adjust the Bezier curve and see, kind of form it a little bit more to your liking. Another thing you can do is grab this smooth tool right underneath your pencil tool and shaper tool. The smooth tool allows you to click and trace where you've drawn, and what it does is it kind of rounds out and kind of curves your pieces, gives it more of a natural flow. It takes away the sharp, hard edges on your drawing, so it looks a little bit more natural and more finessed. So I'm kind of just going over these dots and just kind of clicking and dragging. Play with this smooth tool, you're gonna love it. You don't have to worry about getting things perfect on the first draw because you can just use your smooth tool. I'm gonna kind of go in here, kind of take a look. That looks good to me. I might want to clean this up over here, down here, so I'm gonna grab my smooth tool, kind of curve it out. There we go. All right, so I've got a rough tracing of this hair. And then next thing I need to do is grab my pen tool again. Make sure that your stroke is turned on and your fill is turned off. I'm going to click in the center here, and I'm going to go all the way down. Whoops, I probably go all the way down here, holding these handlebars. I'm going to move this handlebar in because, as you can see, it won't let me go trace the rest of the hair or the face quite like I want it to. So I'm going to move this handlebar in so I can get more of a curve on the ear. I'm tracing the face right now. Hold, click and drag to get that Bezier curve initiated. We want to be able to have smooth lines on our jaw. Click and curve. And then I'll go back up, click and drag, just so I can get a nice curve on the face. All right, so as you can see, in some places I have very hard edges. How do I smooth those edges out? What's something that I can do? What are my options? I can use the smooth tool, right? So I grab that tool. I can use the smooth tool. I can also use my direct selection tool to kind of play with the handlebars. But I like the smooth tool a little bit. It kind of allows me to, I want a good strong jawline, so I'm not going to mess with this too much. You don't want to overdo it on the smooth tool, but this does allow me to get some basic shapes. There we go. And then I'm going to zoom in even more and kind of play with the ears or the shape of the face a little bit. If you hold down Shift and click an anchor point, it will allow me to manipulate that particular one. I can bring in the handlebar a little bit more to kind of get the shape that I'm looking for. And again, this will take a little bit of practice, a little bit of playing with it. I'm just going a little quick for lecture time, but there we go. Kind of bring that in. Bring it in more. All right, that looks pretty good for now. All right, so I didn't need to do that particular tracing on this face if I didn't want to, but I like this so far. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and select it and give it a fill. I filled it in. I'm going to go ahead and click my hair, and I'm going to give it the color that I want, and I think I want to go dark, so I don't want to go black, but I want to go dark, so we'll go dark brown. All right, so I'll grab these two, hold down Shift as you select them both. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to zoom out and go put them on my second artboard. Copy and paste. All right, so that was hair. I'm going to kind of expand this a little bigger. Now I'm going to want to go in and make a little bit more adjustments to my hair. I want to kind of add some detail. You can leave this highlighted on this part if you want on your artboard. I'm going to go in here though and kind of get these. Oh, sorry. Really wants to zoom in. All right, so I kind of want to copy the little details in her hair, these lines, because this is what's going to give me depth and dimension. It's also going to give me character. So I'm going to use my pencil tool here and just kind of trace these lines. Once I have a line, I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool, and this is where I'm going to give it a color. So I'm going to give it, it's got to be a darker color. I'm going to turn off the fill, just make sure the stroke is on. Because I have dark hair, I'm going to need it to be a lighter color. So let me go in. Turn that off, double click on the stroke. I'm going to give it a light brown color like that. All right, and then I'll grab my pencil tool and continue drawing. Go. It's going to be hard to see on top. You can use a color that displays a little easier as you're drawing because you can always change the color later. I'm going to use this little part in her head. Oops. Line. Hold down Shift. All right, so I've kind of got the little hair pieces, the hair strands. I'm going to highlight these. I'm going to copy them, zoom back out, and I'm going to paste them over here. With them still selected, I'm going to kind of expand these and kind of place them right around where I think they need to go. And just make sure that they're brought to the front. You can also adjust the thickness in your stroke, but I don't want them to be too thick, so we'll take that off like that. And you might need to kind of delete, rearrange them. I'm going to zoom in so I can get the detail. I'm going to change the color on these. More of a darker so they don't stand out quite as much. This has a little extra anchor point on the bottom. I'm just going to select it with my direct selection tool and hit delete. Then I'm going to move this in. Same with this one. It has like kind of a little check mark at the bottom and I don't want that. So I'm going to grab my direct selection tool and just select that part and hit delete on my keyboard. That will allow me to delete that little extra piece. I can also grab these hair strands and I can round the edges out. Make sure you don't select the actual body of hair. But by rounding out the corners, it'll give me a softer look and a less hard edge look. So I'm going to go to Window, Stroke, and I'm going to cap these ones to kind of round them out. Okay? That looks a little bit friendlier. That's so hard edged. All right, you can really arrange these in any direction you want. I'll give some curvature to these hair strands here. Oops. I'll try to line this part right in where the hair parts. All right, and then once you have all your elements placed where you want them, you should be good. Hey, Johnny, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining me. All right, so here we go. Are there any questions about how I got the hair? How did I get a different effect? Any questions at all? All right. If you would like to take some time and work on it, we're going to go to a 10-minute break. When we get back, I'd love to see what you have so far. If you want to play around with it and kind of share your screen so the classmates can see. You can play around with the details if you want to add more details. But this way I've got the hair, it's already down, and now all I need to do is trace the other features of the face and kind of pull those in. I even added on this one a little bit of hair strands around the ears. I thought that was a nice touch, so I'm going to go back in here and do it again. I'll grab my pen tool and just kind of do a slight little curve. And then I need to redirect this. Okay, and then I will fill that in. And it's going to be the same color as my hair. I'll make it smaller. I have pretty curly hair, so you could even go in and kind of add more detail if you wanted to. So once you've created an object, you go to Object Arrange, or I'm sorry, Object Transform, Reflect, and then make sure it says vertical, and then make sure the angle is 90 degrees. You can even preview it to see what it's doing. You can hit OK, and then now I can move it on over here to the next ear. It's kind of, I always have hair down by my ears, so this is more indicative of me. You can kind of extend it if you wanted. So to keep things identical, and then what I'm going to do is grab my smooth tool and kind of smooth it out. To keep things identical, once you create one side of the face, you can always flip it and transform it so that it's same size, same direction. So I'll copy and paste it, and then I'll go Object, Transform, Reflect. And this will allow me to flip that feature and line it up on this side. And use those smart guides to kind of tell you where things are lining up. Perfect. Okay, so oh, that's okay, Apple. You know what? If you don't mind, why don't you share your screen? So Apple needs to know how to set up the template, and so we're going to go over this. Can you share your screen, Apple, and I'll step you through it on your screen? If you click the share screen icon on Zoom, it will allow you to select the software you're using. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so now let's go to your layers. We have to set up layers, so go to your template layer. In your layers panel, just your layers panel right there at the bottom. Click on your template layer. Not on that arrow, just highlight the template layer. There you go. Click on it. There you go. Can you double click for me? All right, so it's more than just naming it template. We also need to check the box name template. So if you check mark that box, it will dim your image to about 50%. You can adjust that value depending on what works for you and your eyes. You can also give the template layer a different color so that you know what layer you're on, and then hit OK. And that dims your template layer so you can still trace and see your tracing on top of it. So then now you can just make sure it's locked and visible and go to any other layer that you want. So go to hair or eyes, whichever feature you're going to be working with next. And then you can start tracing and constructing. Does that help? Good job. That was a very good question. Anybody else have questions? Are we stuck? It's okay to ask questions because I want to make sure everyone understands. This is a lot to take in, I realize. Yeah, no problem. Happy to help. Okay, so you can kind of mess with it a little bit. You can kind of see what would look best. Kind of play around with it. Have fun with it for first and foremost. So it's 7:30. So what we'll do is I will go into the nose construction, and then I'll set you guys free to kind of play and trace. And if I'll come back, and hopefully you'll have questions by then if you get stuck. So I'm going to go into the nose next. And I'm going to use the pencil tool for this one. I hope you feel better, Debbie. All right, so you can pick whatever shape you want. I'm going to use this one. And I'm going to go in and kind of trace it. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect on the first round. I didn't really like that though. You can choose to use the pencil tool, or you can choose to use the pen tool. I find that I can get a little bit more accurate if I use the pen tool. So I might do that, because this is kind of hard to use the pencil tool with. So I'm going to grab the pen tool, I'm going to kind of click and drag, bring my, now that I've initiated the Bezier curve, I need to bring in that handlebar, holding down Alt-Option, kind of specify which direction I want it to go. I can always make adjustments later. Hold down Alt-Option. It's not going to look perfect on the first go. Kind of need to continue to all right, there. Now I'm going to grab the smooth tool. I'm going to kind of go in here. I'm also going to zoom in quite a bit so that I can make sure I align my nose shape well. Go in here. You can use these little rounded corners to kind of give a little bit more character. I like the sharper edges personally. I'm going to bring this out. You'll have to play with the structure of it a little bit. Then I'm going to give it some color. There we go. Here's my nose. And then I'm going to grab this pencil tool here, kind of add a little bit. Copy that color. So I'll copy this over. There's my nose. Now, if it's hard to trace, you can kind of go in and I used her last time I did it. I just kind of used her nose because it was bigger and I could get a little bit more accurate with the pen tool. So I'll kind of move in over here. It is blurry, so I just kind of can see the curves a little better. I'm moving the handlebars in to redirect. Make sure that your fill is turned off. This just gave me a little bit more accurate read on the pen tool. Remember, click and drag to get those curves that you want. And then grab the smooth tool if you want to smooth out any edges, or if you kind of want to redirect where it was going. Perfect. All right, that's a good nose. That's also a good one to use. So that's another way that you can do it. I used her nose because it was easier to get a good read, but I'll use the one that I traced. I'm going to scroll on over here. Zooming in will allow you to kind of fine tune what you got, because I've got a kind of like weird wavy lines. I do need to smooth these out a little bit, so I'm going to kind of go in and try to straighten them up a little bit this way. Okay, that looks good. And then with this nose, it's got something funky going on here at the top, so I'm going to just kind of delete these anchor points. I'm going to zoom in. I can even go to the delete anchor point tool. Kind of delete that. If it kind of looks weird, you can use the smooth tool. Kind of retrace. I'm going to have to move these around a little bit. There we go. So it doesn't look a little weird. Just kind of smooth it out until you get the desired effect. Hold down Shift as you select with your direct selection tool on any anchor point, and it will allow you to kind of target that one anchor point, kind of move things in. All right, that looks good. All right, so there's my nose. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to kind of resemble the features a little bit. Now I'm going to fix my jawline as well. I'm going to grab the smooth tool to kind of fix the jawline so it's a smoother smoother, rounder look there. All right, so far I am done here. Do you guys need any, or do you have any questions? All right, so if no questions, we're going to go to our 10-minute break. When we come back, we will kind of finish up here on assignment 3. Then we're going to go into how to create a custom background. What do we do once our avatar is created, and how do we tackle assessment 3? We're going to do some type editing. So we'll be back in 10 minutes. Enjoy the break.
All right, so how many of you actually tried to trace the template? Did you guys have any luck? Tried kind of. That's okay. That's a start. All right, so we'll go more into this in just a minute. Let's see. Let's do the mouth. Okay, so let's try the mouth. I'll do one more feature for this face, and then I'll set you guys free to do it at home. I'm going to trace the. Let's see, I'm going to do the mouth. Let's open here. Let's do these lips. All right, so to get pretty accurate, I'm going to use the pen tool. And I'm just going to kind of curve it around. Remember, turn off the fill. Just have your stroke open. Again, I'm going to move this handlebar here and come back and connect it. Hopefully try to connect it. All right, and then I'm going to grab my smooth tool here and just kind of smooth out this bottom part. And then try to bring this out a little bit. All right, so that part is traced. That's going to be the pink. So I'm going to move the pink over. I'm going to go in and try with the pen tool to copy the teeth. And the idea here is to remember to adjust the shape of your Bezier or the handlebar so that your Bezier curve is kind of goes in the direction that you want it to. Also, grab the smooth tool. The smooth tool will be your best friend. Don't overdo it too much on that tool, but have some fun with it. And then these are going to be my teeth. So I'm going to move this over. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. You can either trace it or you can use your Pathfinder tool to get the shape that you want. I'm just going to go in with the pen tool here and kind of just do it in segments. I kind of just trace the tongue. And because I have my fill turned on, remember, turn off your fill. I'm the worst offender. All right, and then I'm going to use my fill tool here. I'm going to move this over. I can adjust things later. So I'm just going to move it over here. And then the last part is that red circle. So I'm just going to kind of trace it. Again, you need to turn that off. And I'm going to grab the red portion, that red coloring, and move it over here. All right, so I've got the components of the mouth. Now it's time to go fine tune it. So I'm going to copy it or cut it. I'm going to bring it over so I can play around with it. Now this time I need to go to eyes, or I'm sorry, not eyes. In this case, this is going to be mouth. This layer is going to be mouth, so I'll paste it. I'm going to lock the other layer so I don't move anything around. I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to zoom in, and this is where I need to make sure corners are matching, things are touching. So I want the teeth to be on the uppermost layer, the frontmost layer, and I want to make sure that this extends all the way. I'm going to grab my direct selection tool, and I'm going to kind of play around with the direction that this mouth is taking. I probably need to even add an anchor point here so I can kind of play around with the curvature a little bit. Holding down Shift will allow you to select that specific anchor point. And what I'm doing is just kind of lining it up with the corner of the mouth so everything looks like it was pieced together. All right, and that's about all that really matters, because once I get to the teeth, I can kind of smooth out the edges here. I'm going to zoom in nice and close. You can see there's a little bit of overlapping and not enough overlapping on this black area. See, there's this little pink part is showing. So I'm going to hold down Shift and click on that anchor point and raise it up so there's no gap. And then same with this one. I want to make sure that I bring this in. I'm going to use my handlebar to kind of extend it out a little bit. And then I'm going to grab this anchor point and kind of bring it in. Make sure all the anchor points are touching. I don't want any gaps. So I'm going to make sure that this is also extended to the edge. You can also use your Pathfinder tool to achieve the same look. Just make sure that there's no gaps. Okay. All right, this looks good. My mouth looks good. Oh, I didn't fine tune this side, so I need to go on this side. Kind of come in there. I'm going to grab my smooth tool, kind of smooth that part out. That looks good to me. Oh, and then the bottom of this, I need to also smooth out. There's a hard edge right here. So I'm going to use my smooth tool. This will allow me to kind of create the curvature that I need on this object. I can even grab my direct selection tool. This will allow me to manipulate the anchor points. I'm going to bring it down. I just want a natural circle on this mouth. It's going to take a little bit of playing around with. There we go. Perfect. That's way better. All right. All right. That looks good to me. I'm going to zoom out. Let's check out my mouth. Perfect. All right. How fun. Okay. So now what you can do is add eyebrows, add a nose. Remember to use your layers for this. Make sure you put the proper element on the right layer. The more elements that you're working with, the more layers you're going to need, because this will keep things organized and keep you from accidentally grabbing other features. When you're working with vectors and this many details, you're going to need things to be separated, so it's easier to grab and to manipulate. All right, any questions before we move on? You will be saving this as an Illustrator file, and that's the file you're going to be submitting in your assignment 3. If we have time, I'll come back to it. I just want to make sure we tackle our assessment first. So let's go to this one. Let's talk about what we're going to need to do for our assessment 3. Now, the dimensions are under our course homepage. Let me go there so we can set up our new document. So we're going to shift gears here and do more type related exercises. So we're going to quickly create an artboard that is 4 by 2 inches, and we need 3 of them. So you go to File, New. So this is our assessment 3. We don't have a quiz this week. We actually have to manipulate text. So this is actually a fun exercise. Keep it in inches. We're going to go 4 inches by 2. And I want it, we're going to need 3 artboards. You can keep the orientation at landscape and then hit OK or create. So now we've got 3 different artboards. And what we're going to do is grab the type tool. We're going to be working with the type tool here. And let me grab my instructions. And then I'm going to go back to our assessment. So this is, we don't need this one. Oops. Hang on, guys. Illustrator just closed on me. Let's hope I still have my work. Give me 1 sec. Raise your hand if this has ever happened to you. Okay, give it just a minute while it loads. Well, perfect. This should give you time to work on your assignment. Get practice using that pen tool. See, it even happens to the best of us. It even happens to instructors. We get it. All right, just give it a minute. It's still bouncing around, trying to load. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know about you, but Illustrator takes forever to load on my computer. Okay. Here it comes. Sorry about that. Guess that's a good lesson. Save your work. Hopefully my stuff was saved. I doubt it. So how many of you are taking graphic design for a career? Or how many of you are just doing it because it's a hobby? Play a little get to know you session. Career. What do you want to do with it, Apple? How fun. Advertising is a lot of fun. Creating ad designs is probably one of my favorite things to do. I love it. All right, good news, guys. We're up and running. Okay. It's still thinking though, so bear with me. You want to have a career in anime? That's cool. Do you want to do just straight graphic design, anything with motion, animated, or animation? So we've got someone, Matthew, it's a hobby. You want to open a business? You want to open a business related to graphic design or just a business and then hopefully using graphic design to help? You want to get into movies? That's so cool. How fun. I'm excited. You guys are going to be so successful. All right, it didn't like my last new document that I created, so I'm just going to pretend that we have 3 artboards open. All right, so the first artboard, I'll actually open a new one. Let's hope it doesn't crash on me this time. Okay, so can everyone see my screen? We're going to go through this again. So 4 by 2, make sure it's on inches. Select the orientation to be landscape, and then we want 3 artboards, so you'll have to change that number here on the right. Give it a name. This is your assessment 3, and then first and last name. And then you'll hit create. You'll have 3 beautifully stacked artboards. Now you'll grab your type tool on your toolbar. And you can, to activate it, you can click and drag, or you can click once on the artboard. To edit any text that's inside, just double click. And what you're going to do is put your name. So in this case, it would be, so my name's Teresa. I'm going to use my font, Lobster. You can pick any font that is indicative of you and your personality. There we go. And I'm going to expand the size, make it nice and big. All right, so the first artboard, we just need to make it big. Okay, the second one, you'll need to make a copy. So hold down Alt Option as you click and drag. Use those smart guides to kind of center it and line it up. Now, on the second artboard, you have to create outlines. Why do we do this? Well, creating outlines vectorizes this font. So instead of being able to edit it with the type tool, I'm going to be able to edit it with my direct selection tool, my pen tool, and other vector-based tools. So that converts it into a vector where each letter has its own set of anchor points. So we're going to go to Object, or I'm sorry, Type, Create Outlines right here. And you'll notice nothing different happens other than the frame around it. Now, if you deselect off of it, it's now grouped and they have now been converted into a vector. So if you right click on it, ungroup it, this will allow you to select each letter. Hopefully the E and the S are kind of grouped into one. But there you go. You're able to select these letters. Then on Artboard 3, you're going to take this outlined text. So hold down Alt Option. You're going to move it down to Artboard 3. And here's where you're going to customize it. You're going to make it your own, basically. And I have a tutorial to kind of show you how you can accomplish this. So I'm going to use this. Let me see where I put it. Here we go. So we're going to use this tutorial. I'm going to copy it over, see if it'll let me. Here's assessment. There we go. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. So I kind of wanted to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it this effect here where you've got this white overlap on these letters and how they kind of run into each other. I'm going to show you how to create little subtle differences in the type so that it can be customizable. Here are the instructions in case you are wanting to take a screenshot. So I will delete this and I'll kind of put it over here so you can see it. If you want to take a screenshot of this, and I'm going to also expand this to be a little bigger. You can see what we're doing. All right. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a new artboard on the side here so that you can see what I'm doing, but you won't need to create a fourth one for your assignment. All right, second one, I'm going to grab my type tool. I'm going to type in the word tutorial. I'm going to go to Type, Create Outlines. This will turn it into a vector. I'm going to right click and ungroup so that each letter is its own. There's a lot of different things I could do. I can move these letters so that they're a different direction, or I can expand a letter so that it's larger than the others. You still want to make sure they're lined up nice. I can even ungroup this and delete it. And then I can add something there. or I could play with the shape, make it smaller. I can do lots of different things with it. But in this case, I'm going to back up here. I'm going to show you how to create that subtle overlap in just 8 easy steps, okay? So we're going to go to Type, Create Outlines, and now it's converted into a vector. Right-click, Ungroup, and now I'm going to zoom in here so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Pay careful attention. We're going to use the Pathfinder tools. We're going to go to Window, click on Pathfinder to have that panel pulled up. I'm going to grab a square, and I'm going to draw a square right here, just where that little serif runs into the T. And I'm going to select the U. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to select the square and the U. Before I do that, I need to make sure that this is going to cover the little serif of the U. Okay, so select the U and the square. I'm going to select Intersect. Okay, when I click Intersect on the shape mode under the Pathfinder tool, it leaves me this little serif, and it gets rid of everything else that the square was, it only keeps the part that the square was covering. So now I'm going to click this little object here, and I'm going to go to Object, Path, Offset Path. I'll do this several times so that you'll get the steps. You'll need to adjust the offset. Click Preview so you can see how big it is, but we do not need it that big. So I'm going to add a 0 here. I'm going to bring in the meter down so it's a little bit smaller. I'm going to click on Round. I want that to be round, and I'm even going to adjust this so it's even smaller. There we go. I don't want it very big. So it's kind of roughly this size. You can hit OK. And then what I'm going to do is highlight these two, and I'm going to click on Merge because I want to merge them into one. Then I'll click on the T and the little object, the little serif, and click on minus front. So what that does is it gets rid of that. By clicking Command F, it automatically pastes that letter in place, and it gives me that effect that it's kind of overlapping into the T. So I'll do it one more time. Here are the instructions in case you want to screenshot it. I can even copy and paste it for you if you want to try it on your own while I'm going over this. I'm going to do it 3 more times so that we can have enough practice. There's the steps. Whoops. Let's do everybody. Sorry. Okay, there's the steps. Did that come through? Did the instructions come through? No? Let's try it again. Let's try this again. You took a picture of it? Okay. I'm hoping that it'll come through. It's not wanting to send. It's okay. I'll post it under the announcement so you guys can have this. Yeah, you'll need to watch this again because we go through quite a bit in this lecture. All right, so let's try it again. So I'm going to zoom in. Next one I want to overlap is this T onto my O. So I'm going to grab a square. First thing I'm going to do, first step is to copy the letter. So Command C or Control C if you're on a PC. Grab a square, and I'm just going to draw the square so it's just overlapping the part where that serif overlaps. Okay, it looks like it's covering it. Want to make sure it's... All right, so now I'll select the T and the square, and we'll go to Intersect. That leaves me with just that little serif. I'm going to go to Object, Path, Offset Path. All my settings are the same as when I previously did it, so I'll hit OK. And then I'll make sure that these 2 objects, you'll see that there's a little object outlined within the outer stroke. Those are 2 separate objects, so we need to merge them together. So click Merge, and then select the O and click minus front. Then if you hit Command F, it automatically pastes that letter back in place. So that's kind of a nifty little trick. Let's try it again on the O. Select the O, copy it, grab a square, Draw a square where that serif overlaps in the R. Select the square and the O. Click intersect. With that still selected, you're going to go to Object, Path, Offset Path. Settings are the same. Hit OK. Now don't forget to select both of these objects, the stroke and the inner shape, and click Merge. Then select the R and click minus front. Remember, what do we use to paste the letter back in? What's the keyboard shortcut? Command F. That's right. Command F. So that kind of places it where I need to go. So I could keep doing this all day long on these little serifs if I wanted to. We'll do it one more time. So with this I, I'll copy it. I'm going to grab my square box and make sure it's overlapping. I'll select the I and the square. Do you remember what I do next? What's the next step? Anybody remember? You use the Pathfinder tool, you'll click intersect, and then with that still selected, you'll go to Object, Path, Offset Path. Okay, and then you'll hit OK. You'll need to make sure that these two objects are selected, merge them together, then select the letter next to it and hit minus front. Then Command F, paste that letter back in place. So you've got this really cool overlapping look that kind of tailors the text just right. Last one, I'll select the A, I'll copy it, grab a square. I'm just going to kind of draw it so it overlaps, kind of cuts off right there at the end. Select the square and the A, click intersect, go to Object, Path, Offset Path. Settings are the same, hit OK. Make sure you select both of these and merge them. Then select the letter next door and hit minus front. Command F pastes it in place. And you can even move this L around just slightly. And then you can zoom out. And that is a very subtle way to create a very personalized version of this font. Another thing that you can do is one of the students, she added a heart to hers. You can delete this circle here. And if you go to your glyphs, it opens up a whole wide range of characters that you can use. So if I go to type, glyphs, which is found right here in the second section, it opens up the glyphs panel. Now, depending on the type of font you're using, you can adjust the font. You can do Times New Roman. Times New Roman's been around forever, so they have lots of different kinds of characters. As you can see, the list is on and on. It just continues to go down and down. But somewhere in the middle, towards the top, there's more usable characters, like a heart. So what I can do is grab my type tool. I'm going to deselect off of that. I'm going to grab my type tool, double click on the glyph that I want to use. If you don't see it, it usually means your font is too big. So you'll just have to expand your type box. But you can make this a lot smaller. You can also use your direct selection tool. You'll have to create outlines. So go to Type, Create Outlines. Now you can convert it into a vector where it's editable. You can stretch it, kind of manipulate it a little bit, kind of angle it. This is a good way to kind of add some customization. It doesn't have to be a heart. It can be anything else. Let's try it again. Maybe a little smiley face in there. It cannot be a picture, no photography allowed. It can be an illustration or a vector only, but it has to be one that you created or that's in the glyphs. So hopefully that answers your question. So there's a little way to customize it. All right, and another thing that you can do with your type is if you select a letter and grab your direct selection tool, you can play with the angle or the height of letters. So I can go that way with my letter. You can also, if you click on these, you'll notice these little circles. These are the rounding edges that kind of round off the corners. So you can round them a little bit more so you don't have straight edges. Look how dramatically you can change the font. So I click this O, it'll let me bring it a little bit more curvature. Grab this T, scroll over here. What I want to see you do is manipulating your font. Oops, hang on guys. Enough so that it looks like you customized it. So no photography, obviously, but look, now this has totally changed the look of this font. You can even adjust handlebars. Now, say I wanted this T to kind of come into the U a little bit. What I can do is grab my pen tool and kind of create that effect. Okay. What we're going to do is zoom in. This will take a little bit of manipulating. So what I'm going to do is grab a square. I'll select this right here and the T, and I'll click minus front. And then this will allow me to grab select that T, grab my anchor point, and allow me to kind of click there we go. And then I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to bring this down a little. Close out of my glyphs. So you can kind of see if I wanted to bring in create my own serif, I just have to kind of adjust the direction that of the serif, or I can create one on my own. I'm going to grab my smooth tool here. Where'd it go? Hang on. Where'd it go? There we go. Smooth tool. Okay, I need that little serif to be selected. Smooth tool. It also adds anchor points to your design too. So if you like that, it's kind of handy. All right, so once you get it where you want it to be, whoops, kind of bring it out a little bit more. I'm going to grab my smooth tool, kind of smooth out that bottom portion. And then this one needs a little bit more curve to it. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select my direct selection tool so I can play around with the handlebars. I'm going to smooth that out because I don't like that. There we go. Holding down Shift will allow you to select an anchor point that you can edit. And then if you want to get rid of an anchor point, you can even delete anchor points like that. Perfect. Okay, so I got the curvature that I want. I'm going to go up here to my Pathfinder tool. I'm going to select both shapes and click on merge. Now that merges them together, and I can do that same trick that I did earlier. All right, so go to intersect, go to object, path, offset path, hit OK to round it out. Make sure both of these are selected, merge them, minus front, and then Command F will paste it in. So that kind of creates another way to customize. You can add an extra serif there at the bottom. All right, any other questions before we close out? All right. I want you to have fun with this. One last tutorial before you guys go. I wanted to show you how to create a custom background, a starburst background. This is a very simple thing to do. We're going to do this using the ellipse tool. So I'm going to grab my artboard here. If you will click on the ellipse tool. If you click and drag, hold down shift so you can create a nice circle. I want you to turn the fill off. Keep the stroke on. You might want to set the stroke to a bit heavier, like 30 or 40. Depending on the size of your circle, you probably want it about this thick, okay? All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to, we set the fill to transparent. We've got the stroke to black. And then from the stroke tab, we adjusted the size, the point size of my stroke. So I've got about a 40 point thickness here. Now, and then what we're going to do is open up the stroke. So I'm going to open up stroke panel and close out the Pathfinder panel. So we've got this, the weight of the stroke is about 40. I'm going to click on dashed line and change the point size to about 8. But this needs to be selected first, so just don't do the same thing I did. All right, your circle should look like this. So it's got about an 8-point dashed line, and you want it to be about 40-point weight. Now you're going to click on this, this object. Make sure it's selected before you do this. Go to Object, Expand Appearance, or Object Expand. You may have to do it 1 or 2 times until you get this expand panel that pops up. You know you've done it when this expand panel pops up. You're going to deselect fill. We only want to check mark the stroke box, okay? Now, what this does is it's going to make the points editable, and that's what we want. It's going to convert it into its own vector, kind of what we did with the font. You're going to hit OK. And then from the Tools menu, you're going to click and then hold the Warp tool. So we want the warp, or I'm sorry, not the warp tool, we want the pucker tool. So if you click on pucker, double clicking on it will allow you to adjust the radius of the pucker tool. The idea is to have a circle big enough that's slightly bigger than the inner points of your circle, but smaller than the outer points. So I need to increase the width a little bit. So I'm going to do 2 inches by 2. See if that does anything. Hit OK. Oh, I need to go about 5 by 5 maybe. Let's go 5 by 5. Oh, that's too big. See, it's too big. It's kind of a guessing game. Let's do 4 by 4. That might be just right. Okay, perfect. So this is kind of, it's bigger than the internal circles, the internal anchor points, but it's also smaller than the actual circle. If I click and hold, it will automatically bring in my points. So this allows me to do a lot of things. So I'll back up here. If I click and hold my pucker tool, I can rearrange the direction, which will give me a different shape, like maybe a seashell, or in this case, we're going to create a starburst background. So by doing that, I created a really cool design, and now I'm going to give it a color using my eyedropper tool, or you can double click on your fill box and give it a neat color. In this case, I'm going to do a lighter color. Okay, I'm going to back up here. Now, I'm going to show you a little trick too that you're going to need to know. I'm going to expand this so it overlaps my artboard. But you'll notice that it's overlapping on everything else too. And in Illustrator, for some reason, we're not able to, we can only expand the object. So to get it to kind of trim down so it fits the frame of our artboard, what I'm going to do is create a clipping mask. That's creating a rectangle around the entire artboard. Make sure that your rectangle extends from edge to edge perfectly, otherwise you're going to have a weird cutoff. So we want to make sure that the edges extend from page to page. Give it a transparent fill, right click and make sure it's on the front layer, and then select the elements that you want to fit, including that clipping or that rectangle. We're going to right click and click Make Clipping Mask. What that does is it fits everything within that frame. So now when I'm done with my portrait, I can group everything and bring it over here. Arrange, bring to front. I can make it nice and big. And then with my starburst, what I want to do, if you want to edit it, just double click within your rectangle frame. In this case, I'm going to adjust the opacity on it so it's kind of a subtle background. And so there you go. You've got a really nice background. You've got a really nice portrait. Don't forget to give your character a shirt or a collar or something that extends out. Give it some shoulders. You want to add some details that are relatable to you. But this is it. I hope you all get hundreds across the board. If you have any questions at all, please come to my multi-session. Email me beforehand. If you need more immediate assistance, I usually recommend going to the Student Success Center. They're open on weekends as well, and they're open late hours. So I know some of you are working, so make sure that you go visit the Student Success Center. And then our learning coach, Wanda Bryant, usually works in there. So you can contact her and you can set up an appointment. If our schedules don't align, please use those other resources to get answers to your questions. Don't wait until Saturday to email and say you're having a hard time. I want you to get help during the week. I hope you all come to my multi-session. If you do and finish an assignment, you can submit it after I've critiqued it, and you can get a grade point right there on the spot. So you don't have to wait till the weekend to get your grade. I love doing that because it helps you learn and you can make changes before you submit it. And then also it usually ensures that you get a perfect score. So come visit me, come see me. Any questions before we end our meeting? Okay, you need help on the pen tool? Absolutely. So Apple, if you'll, I'll stop the share here. If you'll click and drag, and then you can even unmute. You guys are welcome to go if you have to go, or if you have other questions, you're welcome to wait in line. Okay, Apple, let's see what's giving you some trouble. All right, and Apple, I'll unmute your mic. So if you want to just talk, you don't have to type. Hang on one second. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, how can I help?
I just don't know how to do the curve. Like when I start drawing with the pen tool, I just don't know how to use it. I really don't.
No problem. It's very tricky, so you're not the only one in this boat. So what I recommend is turn off your fill and turn on your stroke. So set your fill to transparent. You can even click that curved arrow and it will swap them. So now this will make more sense because you're actually able to see your stroke. Let me share my screen real quick and then I'll give you, see, that's really good. Did you trace that?
Yes, but I use this tool right here.
Oh, use the curve tool. Okay.
Yes.
Well, sometimes a lot of people prefer to use it if it's hard to master the pen tool. Let me show you. I'll stop your share real quick and I'll show you a few things about the pen tool, and then I'll let you share your screen and we'll go back. Let me close out of some of my windows here. All right. So here's a Reader's Digest on the comprehensive guide of the pen tool. Let me move this, get a free artboard here. Let's create one. We'll zoom in. All right, so first we talked about functions of the pen tool. Clicking on an artboard to create paths with straight segments is kind of the idea. So with the pen tool, single clicks on your artboard are going to give you straight lines. So that's the first thing to remember. To activate the Bezier curves, you have to click and drag the pen tool into a certain direction. So we'll grab our pen tool. And again, we're going to want to make sure that our fill is turned to transparent and our stroke has something visible that we can see. All right, so I click on my artboard, and if I do one-time clicks, you'll notice no matter what direction I'm going in, it's a straight line, right? If I want to activate the Bezier curves, I click and drag. Depending on which direction my handlebars, see these handlebars that extend beyond my anchor point, those are handlebars. And depending on what direction they point, that's kind of the direction that curve is going to go next. I can just continue to click and drag. So I want you to practice just kind of creating curves, click and drag, up and down, up and down, up and down. The exercises for the pen tool kind of help you make sure you're doing perfect curves and perfect circles. But in this case, we just kind of want to get the feel for what the pen tool is going to do. So to, let's see, we don't need to worry about adding anchor points, but I do want you to kind of get used to converting your anchor points. So if you click and drag, you'll notice how each one gives you a different curve. These handlebars, if you use your direct selection tool and click on a point, you'll notice these handlebars, depending on which way these extend, will give you a different curvature, which is what the pen tool exercises are helping us do. If you hold down the pen tool, click and drag, and say, I think it would be easier if you practice tracing something. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to grab this hair so that you can see what I'm doing. All right, and I'm going to give my pen tool a red stroke so that you can follow and see what I'm doing. The red stroke. I'm going to turn off the fill. All right, so what would help is if you practice tracing something, grab your pen tool and click, and I would do it in small segments, but if you'll notice, depending on which way I rotate, it can either extend out or in, but the idea here is to get as close as I can to what I'm tracing. Hang on, what's it doing? Why is it in preview mode? There we go. Okay, let's try it again. Why is it not letting me do that? Oh, you know what? I'm going to put it on a layer and lock it. It won't let me overlap. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to lock this. Now I can trace. All right, so again, I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. The best way to practice this is just finding something you can trace. So I would do it in small increments and try to get as close as you can. Now notice if you see here, I want to go and click again, but it's kind of extending out. That's because this handlebar here is getting in my way. It's saying, nope, your curve's going to go out. So I need to hold down the Alt Option button and bring in that handlebar. So that handlebar tells me what direction my pen tool is going to go next. So I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to go up here, click and drag, and kind of pull out and move it around until I get a good curvature on it. Now, if you'll notice, I want to keep going on this bun of the hair, but because of the direction of my handlebar, it only will let me extend out. Or if I go back in, you'll see it will cause a weird, it doesn't cause a continuation of the line. So I need to hold down Alt Option, bring that handlebar, I need to redirect the handlebar. Click and kind of give it a curve. Again, I need to bring that handlebar in so it follows along the line of my path. That handlebar is what's going to throw you off. So clicking and dragging until you get a really nice curve. And again, you'll just have to practice it. It's just kind of getting that pen tool to do what you want it to do. If it's not going in the right direction, you need to revisit your handlebars. Holding down Alt Option will help you control that a little bit more. And again, it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. See now, it's pointing downward, my handlebar. So it's saying this is where your next selection is going to go, and I don't want it to go down. I need to go up. But if I go up, it'll give me a weird gap. So I'm going to hold down Alt Option and bring that handlebar up so that it traces the path. It stays on the path. So your handlebars kind of need to be pointing on the direction of the path that you want to go. So does that make sense?
Yes, it kind of reminds me of sewing.
Yeah, it kind of does. I've never sewed, but I kind of know what you're saying. It's just you kind of have to bring that handlebar in. And then even now, it's not perfect. That's why I like using the smooth tool. So after I make a rough tracing, I can grab the smooth tool and kind of go around the lines. It'll add more anchor points and kind of bring it up. Kind of trace where I wanted it to be in the first place. So it's not going to be a perfect trace on the first go around, but that's what the smooth tool does, is it adds a little bit more anchor points in between and kind of helps you get the effect that you were going for. So I would practice just making sure your handlebars are pointing in the right direction, but don't overstress if it's not a perfect trace, because in the end, when I hide this, you wouldn't be able to tell. So I would just practice tracing something that you can see. The problem with the template is it's so blurry when you zoom in that it doesn't give you an accurate, it's hard to see because it's so small. So I would pick something bigger to trace or try to blow it up as big as you can so that you get a good feel for the pen tool. So what I want you to do is share your screen one more time, and we're just going to practice tracing something that's easy, like the nose. And we'll go up to the girl's nose in the center. We'll use the big avatar because her features stand out a little bit more. And I just want you to kind of use the pen tool and trace her nose, or you can trace her hair. But I want to see you manipulate the handlebars on the pen tool. So you make an initial click, and then the second click you'll click and drag. So initial click, and then you'll kind of bring it where you want, click and drag it, and rotate it until you get the curvature you're looking for.
Oops.
So click once. Yep, and then you can try to make bigger strokes too. Yep, click and drag. Oh, you were right, you were right. So back up one more time. So click mid-nose, there you go, and hold it down. Mid-nose. Here, back up one more time.
I'm having a hard time.
It's okay. I just noticed your stroke wasn't turned on. So if you'll turn on your stroke, that'll help you see. There you go. So, okay, so before you start, the way you'll start is you'll click once and release. Then you'll click in the middle of her nose and hold it down and move it around. Hold that mouse. Yeah, and that gives you a curve. So now you've activated the curve, and you kind of try to find a good point where it lines up with the nose. Once you get a good curve, you're going to hold down Alt Option. And that changes the Convert Anchor Point tool. You'll see your mouse, yep, and then you're going to click and drag that handlebar to redirect it on the path of the nose. Because right now it's going out in left field, but we need to redirect it. So click that, yep, just as long. Okay, and then you can release it. Use your pen tool again to click anywhere. Probably want to go back up to the tip of the nose where your anchor point is.
Oops.
Or try again. Try it at the top. Click once. Go to mid-nose. You don't have to use the handlebars just yet. The first initial click just says we're going to be using the pen tool. Then click and hold. and that will give you a curve. Kind of bring it in. Yeah, right there. Okay, use your pen tool and go to the tip of the nose. You can release. Oh, you can let go of that. Yep, now click the pen tool once. Okay, and you can choose to leave it there, or when you click, you can hold it down to initiate the curve. Okay, so click a downward to the nose. Yep, you've kind of extended the handlebar where it needs to go. Now use the pen tool and click and hold when you do that, and it will allow you to create curvature with your line. So undo. If you hit Command Z, oh, I have to do it all.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It just takes practice. So initial click once, then go to the mid nose. Oh, don't click and drag. You won't need to for the first click. The first click just says where you're going to start. So click and hold the second. Yep, that gives you some curve. Now redirect that handlebar because look, it's going out there. So hold down Alt Option.
I don't think I did that right.
That's okay. Here, I'll show you really quick what it will look like. It's okay. It can be super frustrating. Just got to take some practice. So we're gonna zoom in here to her nose, and I'll kind of go through the steps as I'm doing it. I'll grab the pen tool. First initial click. Click once. Okay. Oh, I already got one there. Hold on. It's tracing her earlier. Okay. You zoom in nice and close so you can see. Select the pen tool. Make sure your fill is turned off, your stroke is turned on to a color that you can see. You click once at the top. This just says, hey, we're going to use the pen tool. I like going to the tip of her nose, click and drag until I get that curve. So I'll back up. Click once. You can go mid-nose or all the way down, but you'll see it's only going to create a straight line. But if I click and hold, it will give me, it activates that Bezier curve. All right, now I need to hold down Alt Option, and I'm just going to bring this in so I can click and hold. And I'm going to bring this handlebar in, click and hold. Just a subtle click and hold will allow you to create a small curve. And I'm not really messing with my handlebar too much unless it's going out there and left field. But the idea here is to kind of do a rough trace on it. And once you've done that, even if it doesn't look perfect, you can just come in here with the smooth tool. This will help you kind of straighten out your lines like that. But where I think you're getting stuck is if you grab this pen tool, click once, because clicking once will give you straight lines. But the first initial click, then you can kind of bring it down here mid-nose, click and hold your second click. Click and hold. Click and hold. Click and hold. I'm not really playing with my handlebars a whole lot. I'm just doing small clicks as long as they're roughly going the right direction. All right, so let's try it again. Share your screen. And we'll try it again. So first click, and then click and hold. Good. And then you'll need to bring in that handlebar, so holding down Alt Option. Okay, and then you can kind of click again using the pen tool. Click and hold will give you a curve. Clicking just once will give you straight lines. So just depending on what effect you're going for. Yep, that's good. And just kind of do a rough little trace. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect because that's what the smooth tool will help us do.
Am I doing it right?
Yeah, so you're just trying to go in. Click once. We need a little corner there. There you go.
Whoops.
You don't want to continue on your same line. We're just going to draw an outline of that little nose. So you're not going to go back to your black line. You're just going to create a little, we're making a shape essentially. It's going to look like an L. Yeah. There you go. Very good. And then you'll go back to your original point once you get to the top to close out that shape. Very good. So it may not look perfect, but grab your smooth tool and now you can kind of play around with it. You can even delete anchor points if you didn't like them. Just click and hold and kind of trace it basically. Trace small areas at a time and it will start rounding things out. There you go. So you can click and drag the tool if you want to get a good rounded corner. Yeah. So even if your pen tool skills are a little rough around the edges, this is what the smooth tool does. It kind of helps you get the desired effect. So just kind of play around with it. I do want to see you maybe trace her hair. Try her hair really quick. I just want to see you get that bun even. Kind of see how you get that curve. You can kind of start, yeah, and you can do this in larger chunks if you want. Kind of click and hold the second one. Yep, very good. Right there. Bring that, yep. You can keep going. Remember the next click, you can click and hold to give it a curve if you want. Very good. Now when you get to the bun, I want you to click and hold your next click. So instead of just clicking, I want you to go to the, before you make your next move, I want you to go to the bottom of the bun or to the right side of the bun. Yep, and click and hold. And click and drag. Very good. So now we need to redirect the handlebar. Hold down Alt Option and grab the one on the bottom, the handlebar on the bottom. Bring it back in. Very good. Now go mid hair. Yep, I want you to practice using the curves. So hold and drag. There you go. Bring it down. Pull that handlebar down. As you pull down, the curve will go up. Very good. Go all the way down to the ear if you can. Very good. So even still, yeah, you're getting the hang of it. This is great. Thanks, Johnny. Have a great night. So here's where we want a lot of curvature. So maybe instead of doing short little segments, you could try doing one big one. So go all the way down to, yeah, and hold it down. Even going down to her ear will kind of help you. Okay, we back up one. You see your handlebar sticking out? There we go. So click down by her ear, redirect it. There you go. Click right there in the corner of her ear and then go to the next side of her ear and click and hold. Bring it down. When you bring it down, the curve goes up. So when you bring the handlebar down, the curve goes up. It's kind of weird how that works. So click with your pen tool. Yep. Go to the ear, click and hold. Bring it down and over to the, yeah, there you go. Very good. And then redirect that pen tool with the handlebar. Hold down Alt Option. Oops, hit undo. There you go. Very good. Great job. See, you're getting the hang of it. So it's just going to take practice, but I would just keep tracing and practicing those curves, and then you can go get your smooth tool and kind of smooth out those edges. But very, very good. Do you feel a little bit more comfortable with it?
Kind of. Thank you.
Yeah, just keep practicing. It'll come. Just try to challenge yourself instead of doing small little segments, small little clicks around her hair, to maybe try doing larger ones. And then I shared this with the class last week. Let me see if I can find it for you, because this would be perfect practice. It's a Bezier curve game that is a lot of fun to practice, and this is probably something I recommend you go and do. I'll put it here in the chat box if everyone wants to click on that. I'll close this out and show you what it does really quick before we leave. So check this out. I went over this last week, but if you really want some practice, this is probably the best thing to do, because they say you have to be able to create this image with a certain amount of clicks. So you can't just keep clicking. It kind of forces you to create certain things with a certain amount of clicks. First, it starts with straight lines. So you practice holding Shift down and clicking the corners, coming back to your original point. But then it has you doing actual curves, and it will say you only have X amount of moves to make this the circle. So you got to get it within as close as you can, actually. Whoops. See, it says no more nodes left. So it means you have to be able to make this move in a certain amount of moves. So I would practice this, use this game as something fun to do, and a good way to practice as well with the pen tool. So I hope that helps. Are there any other questions tonight? Thanks for sticking with me. Thank you so much. Have a great night, you guys.